There are names in history that stop being names and become symbols. Caligula is one of them. For 2,000 years, he has been remembered as the emperor of madness, a ruler of cruelty, humiliation, excess, and terror. In popular imagination, he is the Roman emperor who turned absolute power into insanity. But history is rarely that simple. The problem is that much of what we think we know about Caligula comes from hostile ancient writers and later retellings shaped by political memory. That does not mean he was innocent. It does mean that the story we inherited may be more complicated than the legend. Tonight, we ask a dangerous question. Was Caligula truly Rome's most deranged ruler? Or did Rome need him to become that monster after his death? Britannica HistoryExtra. Caligula was born Gaius Caesar Germanicus in 12 CE. His nickname came from the soldiers of his father, the famous General Germanicus, who dressed the child in a miniature military outfit. The little boots he wore in camp gave him the name that would survive him: Caligula. That childhood mattered. He grew up inside the emotional machinery of the Roman Empire: military loyalty, dynastic ambition, public adoration, and private fear. His father was beloved. His family was powerful. And his early life unfolded under the shadow of imperial suspicion, betrayal, and death. Britannica, the Roman imperial family, was not a safe place to grow up. Caligula's father died in 19 CE. His mother, Agrippina, and two of his brothers also died after years of conflict and suspicion. Ancient Romans widely believed that the political world around Tiberius had consumed them. Whether every rumor was true or not, the effect on Caligula must have been profound. Britannica. By the time he reached adulthood, Caligula had learned the first rule of Roman dynastic survival. Do not show weakness, and do not trust the people who smile at you in public. The boy raised among soldiers was now a young man navigating the paranoia of the imperial court. When Tiberius died in March 37 CE, Caligula became emperor and entered Rome to enormous public excitement. At first, he seemed like a dream replacement for a dark and suspicious regime. He abolished some unfair measures, completed unfinished projects, and distributed money to Roman citizens. His early image was generous, youthful, and almost redemptive. World History Encyclopedia. For a brief moment, Rome believed it had found renewal. The son of Germanicus, beloved by the army and welcomed by the people, seemed to promise a brighter chapter. But that honeymoon did not last long. Only months after taking power, Caligula became seriously ill. Ancient writers often treat this illness as the point where everything changed. Afterward, they say, his reign became more violent, more suspicious, and more erratic. Treason trials returned. Former allies were executed. The emperor's image began to shift from hope to fear. Britannica World History Encyclopedia. But historians must be careful here. The illness is real in the sources. The interpretation of what followed is more difficult. Did Caligula undergo a physical or mental transformation? Or did power, trauma, and court politics simply become harder to contain? The answer may never be certain. After his illness, Caligula moved against people close to him. Ancient sources record the deaths of key figures, including Macro and Tiberius Gemellus, both once tied to his accession. His beloved sister Drusilla also died in 38 CE, and Caligula's grief seems to have intensified his instability and his public theatricality. Britannica World History Encyclopedia. This is one of the darkest features of Caligula's reign, the sense that no circle of intimacy was truly safe. Power had turned inward. Court politics became inseparable from private life, and private grief became a public danger. If one relationship defines Caligula's political story, it is his war with the Senate. He reinstated treason trials, humiliated elite figures, and ruled in ways that made senators feel powerless, exposed, and afraid. According to later accounts, he mocked their status and made it clear that imperial power no longer needed their dignity. World History Encyclopedia. This matters because much of Caligula's legacy was preserved by elite writers. If the Senate hated him, and they clearly did, then the stories that survive are already part of a struggle over memory. Caligula may have been cruel, but he was also remembered by men with reasons to make him unforgettable in the worst possible way. HistoryExtra ancient sources portray Caligula as a ruler who made divine claims and pushed imperial display into blasphemous territory. One of the most dangerous episodes was his order to place a statue of himself in the temple at Jerusalem, a move with explosive religious consequences, later defused before total disaster. Britannica, whether this reflected madness, calculated domination, or imperial theater, the message was unmistakable. Caligula did not want to be merely obeyed. He wanted to be seen as something above ordinary Roman power. The emperor was no longer content to stand over Rome. He wanted to stand above humanity itself. This is the part of the story most people already think they know. Caligula and the horse. Caligula and the seashells. Caligula and public depravity. But here, modern caution is essential. Britannica notes that the story of Caligula making his horse consul is likely untrue, or at least badly distorted. Whether this reflected madness, calculated domination, or imperial theater, the message was unmistakable. Caligula did not want to be merely obeyed. He wanted to be seen as something above ordinary Roman power. The emperor was no longer content to stand over Rome. He wanted to stand above humanity itself. This is the part of the story most people already think they know. Caligula and the horse. Caligula and the seashells. Caligula and public depravity. But here, modern caution is essential. Britannica notes that the story of Caligula making his horse consul is likely untrue, or at least badly distorted. HistoryExtra goes further, arguing that several famous episodes may have been exaggerated, sarcastic remarks turned into fact, or political theater later rewritten as evidence of insanity. Britannica HistoryExtra that does not make him innocent. It does mean we should stop treating every outrageous anecdote as literal truth. In Caligula's case, the legend often expanded faster than the evidence. Caligula was not only feared, he was theatrical. He spent heavily, staged spectacles, and became famous for ambitious displays of imperial power. Ancient sources and later summaries describe the famous pontoon bridge across the Bay of Naples as one of the most dramatic symbols of his excess and self-display. Britannica World History Encyclopedia. This is one of the keys to understanding him. Caligula ruled not just through orders, but through performance. Wealth, architecture, appearance, humiliation, and shock were all part of the same political language. Under him, the empire became a stage, and he was determined to be its only star. By January 41 CE, Caligula had created enough enemies that conspiracy became inevitable. He was assassinated during the Palatine Games by members of the Praetorian Guard, including Cassius Chaerea. Ancient sources suggest that personal insult, elite fear, and political survival all converged in the plot against him. His wife Caesonia and his daughter were also killed in the aftermath. Britannica. The death was brutal, but it was also strategic. Rome was not just removing an emperor. It was erasing a threat, settling scores, and clearing the path for a new ruler. Claudius Aso, who was the real Caligula, a sadist, a mentally unstable young emperor, a traumatized survivor of imperial violence, a ruler destroyed by his own power, or a man whose enemies made sure his worst moments became his entire identity? The answer may be uncomfortable. He may have been several of these things at once. What is clear is that Caligula was dangerous. He ruled through fear, spectacle, and volatility. But it is also clear that his reputation was shaped by sources that benefited from portraying him as mad beyond reason. The real story of Caligula is not the clean legend of a cartoon villain. It is the messier, darker truth of power, trauma, propaganda, and blood in the heart of imperial Rome. Britannica HistoryExtra World History Encyclopedia.